Okay, so let's do a couple examples. I'm actually going to start on number 2. Sometimes some of the easier ones actually end up being a little more confusing. So let's look at number 2. So step 1 in the note says to first make sure that one of your equations is solved for one of your variables. That means it can be solved for x or y. It doesn't matter, and it doesn't matter which equation. Okay, now sometimes you're going to have to do some work in this step, sometimes you're not. What does it mean for an equation to be solved for a variable? It means that that variable is all by itself. So looking at my 2 equations in my system, okay, is there one of them that is solved for one or the other variable? Okay, yeah, this one right here, y equals 6x, okay? That equation we say is solved for y, okay? So this is gonna be my equation that I'm gonna use to substitute into here, okay? So sometimes I do like to give them names. Maybe I'll name this guy A and this guy B, just so like whenever we start talking about them, you're not confused, like, okay, which equation is she talking about? Okay, so what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna put equation A into equation B, okay? So let's take equation B. I'm just gonna write it exactly how it is, okay? And what I'm gonna do, since this equation is solved for y, instead of y, I'm gonna look wherever there's a y in this equation, I'm gonna erase it, okay? And I'm gonna put a set of parentheses. So instead of y, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna use 6x, because y is the exact same thing as 6x. That's what this equation says. So I'm gonna put it right here. Once you do that, you have one equation with one variable. So now you're able to solve, okay? We can solve for x at this point because I have one equation with only x. So first thing I'm gonna do, I'm gonna get rid of those parentheses. Drop that down, plus 3 times 6 is 18x equals negative 20. I got some like terms on this left-hand side. 2x plus 18x is 20x equals negative 20. And then finally, I'm gonna now divide each side by 20 because I'm trying to solve for x. I'm trying to figure out what he is. So we're trying to get him all by himself. 20 divided by 20 is just the number 1. Okay, so that goes away because 1 times x is still just x. All right, equals negative 20 divided by positive 20 is a negative 1. So we found part of our solution, okay? What other part now am I missing? Well, I know what x is gonna have to be. I gotta figure out what y has to be, okay? So this is at step 3, where I'm going to now substitute this answer back into equation A, that top one, okay? Back into equation A. So let's do another substituting. I've got y equals 6x, but instead of x, what should I put in? Negative 1, okay? So I'm gonna erase that. Negative 1. Now all we have to do is simplify. Y equals 6 times negative 1 is negative 6. So I have both pieces of my answer. So it's always good to kind of just finalize your answer, okay? My answer, it's an ordered pair, right? We always write ordered pairs inside parentheses with a comma. The x goes first, okay? And then the y. So that's my final answer. And that's how Alex would want you to put it into. So let's think about, what does this mean that this is a solution? This means that if I plug in the numbers negative 1 and negative 6 to either equation up here, those equations will be true, okay? 2 times negative 1 is negative 2, plus 3 times negative 6 is negative 18. So negative 2 plus negative 18 is negative 20, okay? So it worked there, it's gonna work there. You can always check your answers, guys, all right? You don't have to guess if you're doing it right or not. Okay, let's do another one. I am gonna erase this, so if you need to continue, just pause it. Okay, number 3. So like I said, you need to make sure that you have one of your equations solved for one of the variables, and it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's X, it doesn't matter if it's Y. So here you notice that my first equation, I'm gonna call it equation A again, just because I like to be able to talk about equations that give them a name. A lot of times in math, that's all letters and numbers, or letters and symbols are. We just need to give it a name so we can talk about it, okay? Don't be freaked out by letters in math, okay? Okay, so I have equation A is already solved for Y, okay? If you notice, Y is all by himself. So that means step one, done. You don't have to do anything. Look how easy that is. Okay, step two, you're going to now take equation A and substitute it into the equation B. All right, so I'm going to write equation B out. 3x plus 8y equals -5. Okay, and the way we substitute it in, since this equation is solved for y, okay, it's solved for y, that means I can take this y out, okay, and instead of y, what's the same thing as y? X plus 9. I do need to put some parentheses though, because you don't want to disturb that multiplication that was going on, okay? Don't not put the parentheses. Don't tell an English teacher, just so that. Okay, now we're going to solve. So we first need to simplify. So I'm going to get rid of these parentheses and distribute. Plus 8x plus 72 equals -5. I'm going to combine like terms. 3x plus 8x is 11x plus 72 equals -5. Okay, now I need to get the x by itself. So the first thing you want to do is eliminate the constant term that's on the same side. So I'm trying to get rid of everything else that's on the x side. So I'm going to subtract, because subtracting is the opposite of adding. So I'll subtract 72 on that side as well. All right. So positive 72 and a negative 72 equals 0, and 11x plus 0 is still just 11x. Equals, if you owe me $5 and then borrow another $72, you now owe me $77. Okay. Okay, now, very final step, 11x means 11 times x, so the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So 11 divided by 11 is just 1. And 1 times x is just x, so those get to go away. Equals negative divided by a positive will always be a negative, and 77 divided by 11 is 7. So x is equal to -7. So we're almost done. All right, we found the difficult one. Now it's time to finish this off, okay? Now equation A is nicely written up here. It's already y equals x plus 9. So I'm going to go ahead and take this and plug it into equation A. Okay, so we'll say equation A is y equals x plus 9. But instead of x, what should I write? Well, I just figured out what x is. X is -7. So use that, -7. So y equals -7 plus 9. You owe me $7 and have $9 in your pocket. You got $2 left. So let's finalize our answer and write it as an ordered pair. The x goes first, and then the y. What does this solution mean? It means that if you plugged it back into either one of these equations, those equations would be true, okay? Sometimes we would say they would satisfy the equation. That's a mathematical, some mathematical language. It satisfies both equations, okay? All right, let's do number 4. Okay, so step 1, always make sure that you have one equation solved for one variable, and it doesn't matter. So in this example, you see that the first equation is solved for x. Does that matter? Because the last times they were solved for y. It doesn't matter, guys. All we're looking for is to be able to pick up one side of the equation, okay, and plug it into another. So I need to make sure that I only have, that this variable is all by itself, okay? We want to make sure it's all by yourself. So it doesn't matter which variable it's solved for in here. So my x is the same exact thing as saying 4y plus 7. X equals 4y plus 7. So that means that those two expressions are equivalent. They're the same thing. So I'm going to take my equation B. Sorry, A and B. I got 2x minus 2x minus 6y equals 12. Okay, so I'm taking my equation B, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to substitute this equation into this equation. All right, and the way I do that is, you see how we both have an x right here. All right, so what I do is I take this, the right side of this equation, and substitute it in. All right, so I've got 4y plus 7. Okay, so we're going to need to simplify by distributing. Okay, I think I'm going to go over here. You can't see my face, but that's okay. I've got 8y plus 14 minus 6y equals 12. Now I can combine like terms. Like terms have the same variable. So I've got a positive 8 and a negative 6y. So whenever you combine variables, you add or subtract the coefficients. You have 8 y's, but you owe me 6. That means you have 2 y's left. Okay, plus 14 equals 12. Do you notice in this step, we don't ever try and combine terms that are on different sides of the equal sign. We hold off for that until everything is simplified on one side, and then it's time to start using our inverse operations to isolate that variable. So I'm going to subtract 14 from both sides. 14 minus 14 is 0. 2y plus 0 is still just 2y, so it goes away. 12 minus 14, if you have $12 and owe me 14, you still owe me 2. And then finally, the opposite of multiplying is dividing. So I'm going to divide that away, and y is equal to negative 1. You guys see that? Y is equal to negative 1. I'm sorry about that. Dark down there. All right, so y is equal to negative 1. Am I done? No, we've only figured out half of the solution, right? Because the solution is an ordered pair. An ordered pair, pairs of things have two things. So you got to find the second one. So take this guy and plug it in to equation A. Okay, this was the equation that you used to, that you were substituting in with. So use it with that one. Okay, so I got x equals 4y plus 7. But instead of y, what do I want to write? I already know what y is. Y is negative 1. So x equals negative 4 plus 7. X equals 3. I'm trying to write really big so you guys can see me, so hopefully this is all right. I know it's a little sloppy. Okay, so my ordered pair is, you put the x first, 3, and then the y. So if I took this 3, negative 1, and plugged it into these equations, those equations would be satisfied, okay? Also, taking it back, thinking about how we did this graphically, if we graph these two equations, all right, where would they cross at? Remember, they cross at their solution. So I would know that they would cross at the coordinate 3, negative 1. Okay, I'm gonna work a few more out in the next video for you guys.